Welcome to the Home Education with Ease podcast. I'm your host, Christine Furman, a homeschool mom, entrepreneur, and educator with over 20 years of experience in the areas of elementary and special education. It's my mission to help you create lifelong learners and embrace a holistic approach to education at home. I'll be sharing practical strategies, inspiration, and resources to support your family. Whether you're a stay-at-home mom, a business owner, or balancing work and homeschool, you're in the right place to connect with a community that values education just as much as you do. Join us each week as we ditch the stress, embrace the joy of learning, and set your family up for a lifetime of success. Hello, and welcome back to the Home Education with Ease podcast. I'm your host, Christine Furman, your home education expert. Well, over the past month or so, I feel like I've been having similar conversations over and over again with friends and clients. And I figured it was the perfect time to share what I've learned from those conversations and my reflections on them. So I just want to first encourage you, if you are hearing the same topics or the same kind of discussion and having those same conversations, lean in and see if there's a lesson that needs to be learned. See if there's a change that needs to be made, or what kind of reflection you need to take away from those conversations. For me, it was all about reassurance. It was those conversations and that positive encouragement that I needed to remind myself to keep going. The reminder that I am making an impact and I'm helping families nationwide and that they are seeing results. Well, today we're diving into why teaching the fundamentals of learning first sets our kids up for success in more complex skills. Something that has been very important to me throughout my teaching career and now within my own EduPlay Learning Academy. From my own experiences that I've seen and my personal philosophies, I believe that many parents feel pressured to push advanced skills too soon on our kids. And without a strong foundational skill, kids are going to struggle later on. And when we focus on those skills first, learning just becomes a little bit more natural. It's not forced. So I'm going to share more on all of these throughout this episode. But I just want to say, if this resonates with you, one, keep on listening because we're going to talk more about each of these in depth. And two, I encourage you to join the Home Education with Ease Facebook group to connect and continue to join us in this conversation. So that's definitely what I would do. So let's just talk about this a little bit more. So what does it even mean to teach the fundamentals first? Well, when I started developing the EduPlay learning method and the curriculum, I knew it was important for that learning to start with those strong foundational skills. So phonemic awareness before reading, phonics, sight words, right? A combination of that. And if you happen to listen to my previous 2 episodes, I talked all about reading and my reading program in those episodes, and that's really important. It's a combination and a balance of those. Number sense and skills before math concepts. Fine motor development before writing. While all of this sounds like it just makes sense, it's not always taken into account for all learners. So think about a house. We need a foundation, a solid foundation, or else everything else crumbles. And I've seen this happen. If the foundation is not strong, if we are not practicing these skills with our kids, and then we're just expecting them to do the next level, it's a struggle for them. So how do we develop these skills? You know my favorite answer. It's through play. And it starts out very early. 6 to 12 months, it can start out. And I talk about this a lot in a lot of my episodes, especially my most recent episode, episode 59, 10 Ways to Engage Your Young Learners. So you can definitely check that out. But our kids, when they're 6 to 12 months, 18 months, even in those toddler years, you may not think that they're ready to be practicing skills, but they are, and they are soaking it all up. Let's just go up to one of the concepts I said, fine motor skills. Well, we need to practice fine motor skills with our kids so then that way their muscles are developing correctly, so they're able to hold a pencil correctly. So then that way when it's time for them to really be writing their letters and practicing, they're able to easily do that. So I want you to think about these things. And I want you to invest in things such as letter games, counting activities, puzzles, books, blocks. I just want to say it does not have to be complex or expensive. All of these things can be purchased at dollar stores, at consignment shops, yard sales. You could even use things you have around your house. And in many of my EduPlay Learning episodes and videos that I have on YouTube, I share how can you even teach math skills with snacks and during snack time each day or the food that you have in your house. So I really like to implement the things that we already have and use them as everyday teaching moments because they truly are so important for our kids to learn and develop. So fine motor skills, scissor skills early on. There are plastic ones that really don't even cut anything. And it's really just helping your child to make that movement with their fingers, the cutting movement. Even before that, just ripping paper. One other thing I actually just saw, thinking of scissor skills, was grass. Going outside and having them practice cut grass. Then guess what? You don't have any clippings or anything in your home, no ripped paper or anything like that. You're just outside. Now make sure you're always making sure that your kids have supervision with scissors, because if not, that's when those accidents can happen. But just think of some simple things: ripping paper, drawing lines and circles. These are very important, just having our kids practice holding a crayon, a marker, a pencil, chalk, sidewalk chalk. If it's a bigger thing, like bigger crayons, thicker pencils, markers, it's a lot easier for them to grip when they're younger. And then the other thing that I've done is I hold the marker or pencil or whatever it is that we're writing with. I hold it with them and I practice hand over hand. So basically my hand is over top of their hand. And it doesn't matter if they're holding it totally correctly, but they're feeling the movement of writing. So I did this in Sunday school all the time with all the kids. And I would hold their hand and I would practice writing their name with them. So number one, they're feeling it with me because they're going over it, and I'm spelling it out loud and they're seeing the letters come to life on their paper. And I had 2 and 3-year-olds in that classroom. Okay. So they were young and they weren't expected to write their name. But with my help, they were able to write their name. And that right there is just continuing to build their confidence. And that is so important in that early development of our kids' skills. So some of the things for gross motor skills would be to jump, hop, tumble, toe touch from one side to the other, right to left, left to right. Crossing that midline is really important for development. Going on a walk together, really building up their stamina. Of course, in those early years, take them for a walk in a stroller, but as they're able to, get their legs going and they want to walk, let them walk. Let them see how far they can go. And then when they get tired, then they can sit. So keeping in mind these little simple things are so, so important for their development. And if you do have kiddos under 7 and you're looking for a curriculum that figures this all out for you, I encourage you to check out the EduPlay Learning Activity Kits. A new collection is presented each week, and they are full of hands-on, multi-sensory activities and ideas, movement ideas, crafts, and so much more. And I really focus on those fine motor skills, those gross motor skills, early reading and math skills. All of these so important for their development. So check out that link in the show notes below. Well, now let's talk about what are the pitfalls of rushing into learning. And what I have noticed is that when kids are pushed too fast, they are more likely to memorize content and learning and not comprehend it. They're going to memorize facts and not comprehend. And I feel like I have definitely experienced this in my own life where I memorized tons of facts for tests and then I forgot it. I just knew that I needed to study over this study guide, memorize everything that was on it, and get through the test to get a good grade and then move on to the next test. Because sometimes when I was in public school, and sometimes you would have 4 or 5 tests in one day. So you're learning everything throughout the week. And it's like, okay, get it all, for this test on Friday. And then next week, we're going to move on to something else, which I understand. There's a lot of things to learn. However, I didn't learn. There were so many topics and skills that I got through, especially like history and different complex things. I got through them, but I didn't actually understand them. And yes, there are some things that I encourage, my kids and my students to memorize our addition facts, our subtraction facts, multiplication, division, right? I want them to know them quickly. However, I spend a lot of time prior to practicing our facts with the why of it. Well, what is even addition? Well, this is what it means. What is multiplication? Here's an example. It's hands-on and showing them what is actually happening. So then they understand. So whenever they encounter a problem in life, that's what it's all about for me. Home education. How are we making sure that the skills that we are teaching them are applicable to their life? And they are able then to take a problem and say, oh, well, I have to multiply here. Or I need to take these cookies and I need to divide them evenly by my friends. What do I have to do? Making it relatable to them. So I knew that for myself and my own children, I did not want them to have that same path that I had. I did not want them to have a test or memorize everything for a test and then forget it. I wanted them to understand what they were learning, the why behind it all, and to thrive. I wanted them to truly enjoy the learning process, which is why I now educate my kids at home, which is why now I've created the EduPlay Learning method, programs, and academy. And I just wanted them to enjoy learning. I want my students to enjoy learning. I want them to retain the important information, but I also want them to be problem solvers. If they don't know the answer right away, how are they going to figure it out? I want them to learn how to be critical thinkers and use this useful information or be full of useful information, which that's a whole episode in itself. And that may be coming out very soon of the things that I do want my children to learn. Yes, of course, there are math skills and reading skills, and we're going to be focusing on those basic skills. But once they have those basic skills, they're going to be able to face a problem and say, oh, well, I can figure this out. Even if they need a short little mini lesson to show them what does this mean, then they can do it. And that is what it's all about. It's making sure that that foundation is so solid. So then that way, when they do get to those more complex skills, they're like, oh yeah, no problem. I got this. Building that confidence. Something else that I've seen, anxiety has just been so rampant in our young learners. And it's hard for me to see that, but I've seen that in so many children. And I do understand that there are some situations that are out of someone's control, but I've seen students not want to go to school because it's hard, because it's confusing, because their confidence is just not there, because they are learning a skill one day and then they go in the next day and it's something totally different. And they're like, I didn't even remember what I learned or knew. I didn't even understand the concept that I learned yesterday. So just imagine how frustrating that would be. And that's another benefit that I have found within my own programs and within educating my kids at home here is that I can focus on a skill and say, hey, let's just kind of circle back to that. And you can always come back to skills the next day during dinner time, right? If we're seeing our kids are getting frustrated, we can just stop for a minute. And within the EduPlay Learning program, I just share there's so many other ways that we can share this lesson with them, so that we can teach them this skill. And let's figure out the way that best fits your kids' needs. So it's so hard for me to see the anxiety that's been developing for our young learners and the confidence that they are lacking because they're struggling. And I talked a lot about reading confidence last episode, but that really goes for all skills. If our kids are lacking that confidence, why are they lacking the confidence? Sometimes we just have to go back a little bit and make sure that we're filling in those gaps so then they have a strong foundation to be able to move forward. And let's talk about our children and supporting their natural development because we want them to master these basic skills and give them that confidence and that curiosity to be able just to tackle more complex skills, to be able to say, I can do this. I know that I can figure this out. Again, problem solvers, critical thinkers. That's what I want to help you raise and develop within your kids' education. And this goes back to even my teaching way back. I mean, I can even remember in college, like what's so important to you, when it comes to your learning environment. And for me, it was all about safety. Our kids thrive when they're in an environment where they feel safe. And now I want to create that safety net for my students, past, present, future, and even my own children. I want them to feel safe to ask questions, make mistakes, be curious, and try again. Because there's no judgment, there's no shame. There's just love and support and encouragement. And just say, what did we learn from that? And how can we get up again? We just got to get up one more time to see that success. And that's what I offer my students. I offer that to my students that I teach in the classroom. When I was in the classroom, my students that I teach in person, now my own children, any students that I teach virtually, that is what I really want them to know. That it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to try again. And just walking alongside parents and saying, this is okay. Allowing our kids to have that safety to ask those questions, ask the why questions, the hard questions. Well, here are a few of these conversations that have kind of come up for me recently that I wanted to share with you. Well, the first one was a client of mine was at a dance studio with her daughter. And her daughter said, hey, Mom, what's that word on the bulletin board there? And she said, well, let's sound it out. So she's starting to sound it out. And then she says the word. And then another mom that was there in the waiting room was, observing this. And she goes, wow, what grade are you in? To the little girl. And being a homeschool student, a lot of times they don't know what grade they're in. I don't know. Can you relate to that, guys? Because that is reality. My kids are like, I don't know what grade I'm in. We just learn. There's no actual grade level on it. Of course, there is. We do that for other reasons, but for them, it's just learning. And that's kind of how she feels too. And so the mom that was in the waiting room that was observing all of this, she goes, well, you've got to be, the end of first grade, beginning of second grade based on your reading skills. And my client just giggled a little bit and she goes, oh my goodness, no, she's in between kindergarten and first grade, And she was like, wow, she's reading better than my daughter that's in second grade. And that just made me smile from ear to ear. And it just was like, yes, another successful reader using the EduPlay Learning's Reading Fundamentals program. And that was just such an encouraging story. And then I went on to continue to share with her other experiences that I've had with families like this. That it's like, yes, this does work. And it works because we are just naturally introducing these skills to our children. And it's fun and it's easy. And it doesn't have to be so monotonous for our kids, even for ourselves. And I often have students that come to me that are struggling, whether they're in school and they're struggling or whether they are not. And I like to meet them where they're at. I like to, just talk with them, figure out why is this a challenge for you right now? What is difficult? And we're able to have those open conversations to be able to, allow them to be seen and heard. Because sometimes there are kids that fall through the cracks because they're good kids, but they may be struggling with skills, but they're just getting by. And those are the ones that are falling through the cracks because inside it's hard for them. They don't understand. And no one's really like paying attention to them because they're not making a problem. They're not being problem in school, but it's still a struggle. As you can tell, my heart goes out to all my students that, experience that. And that's why I just love welcoming them into my programs with open arms and being able to, find what those holes are and be able to fill them in. So then that way they can begin to thrive. And sometimes we do that through games and activities, or, we just figure out different ways for them to learn this particular skill. Or by having those conversations, sometimes they just need someone to talk to boost their confidence. And just being patient, just continuing to practice over and over and over again. It's helping them to get back on track. And I just love being able to do that for so many families. Well, one family in particular, I was talking to the mom recently, and we were talking about a grammar lesson that I was teaching my own children. And we're talking about types of sentences, right? And I have tons and tons of curriculum from all of my years of teaching. I have just gathered different curriculum, and I knew I would use it for something. And now here I am just being able to use it as a resource to be able to create something else. And by taking these skills, this particular skill was about the types of sentences. I'm like teaching my kids and we're talking about it. And I said, okay, there's, these different types of sentences. We have a statement, we have a command, we have a question. And then as I'm like going over it, I was like, okay, well, let me teach you what the actual terms of these are. So I pull another book and I'm teaching them exclamatory, imperative, interrogative, declarative, right? So I'm teaching them these terms and they're like, okay, I kind of get it. So we turn it into a game and we have fun with it. So again, it's not just some boring lesson that they're glazed over, right? It's interactive for them. So I'm doing this and I'm teaching them this lesson, all about these skills. And I pull another book that was a grade level ahead. And this lesson is repeated again. So we're teaching our kids types of sentences over and over and over and over again. And we're starting super, super young and making sure that they identify these types of sentences. And I get that there are layers and we're building each time. But sometimes maybe we're just wasting time. And I know that as I was talking to my client, I said, do we really even need to know the types of sentences? Do I ever say that I'm going to write a declarative sentence right now? I have never said that. So the whole point of this is to say, take these skills and just know that either they're going to repeat over and over again, or by introducing them to these skills, you're then able just to have natural conversations over and over again. So by me teaching that lesson to my children, and by saying, okay, well, first we're going to start off by telling you that it's a command, a statement, or a question. Well, they know that. And why do they know that? They know that just because we read all the time. I never told them that before. I never taught them that. We read, we have conversations often. I allow them to ask questions. So, sure, they put a term on it now and they identified what it is. And then I was able to introduce the actual terms for those sentences. Great. They've been introduced to it. And now we can move on. Or we play a game with it. Or now in a conversation, I can ask them and say, what kind of sentence is this? If I really felt like that was an important thing. So stay tuned because I am going to share with you a whole episode on what I believe are the real important skills that we need to teach our kids while we are educating our kids at home. So that will be a whole episode because there are so many skills that we just teach and we just do what the curriculum says. And then it's like, but why? Do we really need this or are we just wasting time? Was it just a time filler? Because it could have been. So over the years, I have developed and taught the EduPlay learning method, which I take all of this into account. So when I'm teaching my kids, I take all of this into account and I say, what is really necessary here? What are the actual skills that I want my own children to develop so then that way they can go out into this big world and be successful? And what are the skills that they're great to introduce? They're great to talk about because you never know what direction anyone's going to go. But, you know, I'm able to help make that plan for my families that I work with. And what we do is we focus on hands-on multisensory activities and meeting our kids right where they're at in a fun and meaningful way. So one of the programs within the EduPlay Learning Academy is that Reading Fundamentals program. So I shared about this a lot last episode, and it really is focusing on building a strong reading foundation. Now, this goes for any of my programs, my Math All Around Us program, building a strong math sense. The EduPlay Learning Academy is just making sure that we are teaching all of the fundamentals. And this is helpful for families that are homeschooling. This is helpful for families that maybe are just struggling. Maybe their kids are in school and they're struggling with a specific skill. Well, the Reading Fundamentals program may be that boost that they need to build their confidence. That Math All Around Us may be that boost that they need to build their math confidence. Maybe they just need teaching moments so then that way they can learn life skills and really just continue to boost their confidence overall. But all of these programs that I've created, they're engaging, they're hands-on, and they are effective. That was evident to me as I've had these conversations time and time again recently saying, Christine, what you're doing is working. Keep moving forward. Because sometimes there are moments that you get discouraged. There are moments that you let the enemy try to attack you, or the enemy is trying to attack you, right? And I just got to stand up and say, not today. Not today. I know what my purpose is. I know what the Lord has called me to do. And I'm here to teach and to help families teach their kids. So if you are looking for more support, let's definitely chat. There's lots of ways to get in touch with me. You can reach out to me via social media on all platforms. Those links are always in the show notes below. Send me a DM, join the Home Education with Ease Facebook group and message me in there. You can even fill out the EduPlay Learning form that is in the show notes below. And that is a great way for us to get the conversation started. You can let me know where your kiddos are at. What are some of the struggles you're having? What are the wins that you're having? And how can we fill in those holes? So that link is also in the show notes below. But remember, your child is capable of learning, and they're learning at their own pace in their own time. And we're going to focus on building those strong fundamental skills. And when we do that, everything else is going to fall into place. So trust the process, be patient, and celebrate those small wins because those in the long term are big wins. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. And if it did resonate with you, share it with a friend, leave a review, and just come back next week. And if you really want to join in the conversation, be sure to join that exclusive Facebook group, Home Education with Ease, so we can continue the conversation. I would love to know the thoughts that you have, your child's learning wins, and any questions that you may have for me. So just remember, when I create these programs, I create them to be fun, effective, and stress-free for everyone. Because it really is my goal to help you raise kind, independent, and confident kids. See you next week, friends. Thank you for tuning in to the Home Education with Ease podcast. I hope today's episode left you feeling empowered and ready to take the next steps on your home education journey. Your support means the world to me. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend. For even more resources, be sure to join the free Facebook group, Home Education with Ease, and visit eduplaylearning.com to explore our programs and subscription kits. You can find the links and any other links mentioned in this episode in the show notes below. Remember, you're not alone. This community is here to support you every step of the way.